The noun. Let's take a look at how the noun functions or is formed in Hebrew. In Hebrew we have 3 numbers and 2 genders for nouns. We have the singular. I'll write them up here because I'm going to write a paradigm. We have plural, just like English. We also have the dual. And I'll spell this one out, D-U-A-L. And this is for words that come in pairs or twos. We also have genders. We have 2 genders, masculine and feminine. So it's something like French. Unlike German, German has masculine and feminine, and it would have a neuter here as well. So we have masculine and feminine. Now let's take a look at what the paradigm is, the pattern. We use the word sus. Sus is horse in Hebrew, so sus the horse. The masculine singular form is the base form, and all these other ones will use this, will build on this. So sus has no ending. Let's look at the feminine. Oops, that wasn't a very good samach, was it? Let's try this again. Oh, not much better, but you know what I mean. Sus. Now the ending, the feminine ending, is a. Now we'll find actually that the feminine ending, there are a number of feminine endings. These other ones are all fairly stable, but this one can have a number, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. But this is the base one. We'll memorize that one as part of our paradigm. So, sus and susa. Let's take a look at the plurals. Again, we start with sus. I'll change color again here just to highlight the ending. The masculine ending is im. So sus becomes susim. And it's a hidik yud, mem. Hidik yud, mem. Susim. And the feminine one is susot. Su-ot. Oops, I was going to do that in color, wasn't I? Susot. Holem vav with a tav. Okay. Sometimes you'll see this without the vav, it'll just be a holem, but it's still susot. So susim and susot. Finally, we have the dual. Now the dual is actually has the same ending for both masculine and feminine. However, in the feminine it looks a little different, at least with this word. And I'll explain why in a second. But let's look first at the masculine. Give ourselves plenty of room. It's a bit longer. So sus becomes susim in the plural and susayim. Susayim. This looks kind of similar to this. It's got this part looks similar, but the hidik is before the yud here, and here it's under. And what's happening here is this is a hidik yud. The yud here is a vowel. Here it's a consonant. And we know that because there's a vowel under it. So this is a, yim, and this is im. So don't get those two confused. Susim and susayim. Okay, now let us write down the feminine dual. It is su, and I'll change here. Susayim is the masculine. Susatayim. And we get a patach here, or sorry, a kamet. Here we get a patach. Susa, and then we have the piece we had here, susatayim. Okay, this part is the same, ayim and ayim on the end, but here we have this at. Where did that come from? Well, what this is this. So the feminine dual builds on the feminine singular. Now, if we were simply to add the dual ending to this here, if we left this a hey, that's the only difference here. If we left this a hey, then we'd have 2 vowels together. It would be pronounced something like susayim. Now we know that Hebrew doesn't like 2 vowels together, double vowels. Double consonants are fine, but not double vowels. And so you'll find, and we'll see this as we move through Hebrew, that if you have a final hey on a word like this, a final hey, and you add something on the end, the hey will tend to either drop or it will change into a tav. Here it changes into a tav. So we have susatayim. So it's still the same ending. The dual ending is here and here, but the ending of the feminine has changed a little bit. Okay. Now, what else do I want to say about this? I guess the important thing here to say is this is something to memorize. Let me put a little M here. And throughout these modules, I'm going to start to do this here. I'm going to put an M, try to remember to do it in the same color with a circle around it, to highlight things that are really important to memorize. This is a basic paradigm. If you memorize this, it will help you. You don't need to memorize everything. It's not efficient to memorize everything. Some things you should just learn for recognition. But this is something to learn to be able to reproduce. Write this down. Write it down on a piece of paper, whatever you have to do, so that you can reproduce it. That forces you to learn what all these little bits are. Because this paradigm will be the basis for other things. We'll add things to this. We'll change them. And if you don't know this one well, then you'll get confused when we add the other bits to it. So memorizing this will pay dividends for sure. And it's probably a good idea to memorize this by saying it. Sus, susa, susayim, susot. Sus, susa, susim, susot, susayim, susatayim. So say it, but also know what the endings are in isolation. Okay, you got nothing for the masculine. You've got a. For the feminine singular, we've got im. We've got ot. Get that right. Ot, and we've got ayim over here for the dual. Ayim, and then, well, we have ayim. If you want to memorize just the endings, I recommend you memorize this thing with the sus. If you want just the endings, this is what they are. The at here is part of this, but there are some feminine nouns that won't have this, and so really what's going on here is these two are the same. The dual is the same, so that's kind of nice. A little less to memorize. So, now let us look more closely at the feminine singular. There are a couple other ways you can make the feminine singular. So, let's get a new sheet. We had this one. That's sort of the base one. We had that with susa. You can also have nothing. There are feminine words that have no ending. So they look kind of like a noun. Or sorry, like a masculine singular noun, because the masculine singular noun has no ending. But in fact, they are feminine. Examples are a word we've seen many times now, eretz. Eretz is feminine. Aim is feminine. Aim means mother. Eretz is land or earth. Aim is mother, and that is feminine, understandably. But it has no ending. It's just no ending. A couple other ones. We have yad, just as examples. Yad means hand, and up here I'll write another one. Regel. Regel means foot or possibly leg. Regel. Now these are body parts here. Paired body parts, eyes, legs, feet, whatever, hands, they tend to be feminine, just as a little bit of useful information. So we have the a ending. We have no ending as a possibility for feminine singular nouns. That's what we're talking about here. And the third possibility is the ta. Now that shouldn't be surprising. Remember, a changed to at. Well, sometimes you can just have feminine words that end with tav. Example of that would be brit. Let's see, how do I spell this? Berit. Berit. That's a yud. Berit. And berit means covenant. Or another example would be bat. Means daughter. So here we have two feminine singular nouns that end with tav. In the plural, however, they all go to ot. So plural is easy. Oops, that's a bad circle. The plural is easy. It's the feminine singular that has these three possibilities. Okay, lastly, let us look at a couple other features. This is not really morphology, this is how these words can be used. Singulars can function sometimes as collectives. You know, like in English you have sheep. Sheep can mean one sheep. It can also mean many sheep. There are also some words in Hebrew where singulars can function as a collective. Ugh, my writing today. Collective. And an example of that, a couple of them here, is one is Oph. Oph means bird or birds. Behema. He. It's a name. Behema. That can mean beast or beasts in the plural. And I'll give one more example, and that's eitz. That means tree, but it can also mean trees. So bird, beast, tree can be used also as a collective. And just by way of review, notice these here are two feminine nouns that have no endings, not an "a" ending. This one has the basic "a" ending. So singulars can act as collectives. Conversely, plurals can act as singulars, or can mean something singular. So plurals can function as a singular. And the classic example of this is Elohim. So we have Elohim. So we know this is plural, right? It looks like a masculine plural word. We have the "im" ending here. This can mean, it can mean gods in the plural, which is kind of what you expect because it's got the ending. But it can also mean God, small g, just a god. Or it can mean like the God of the Bible, which generally in English we would capitalize. So it can be singular or it can be plural. Here's a plural that can function as a singular. In fact, most of the time, Elohim simply means God, the God of the Bible. So it's usually used as a singular. Another example would be damim. Dam is blood, and damim, you can see again that this looks like a plural. Well, it has a plural ending, damim. Morphologically, it's a plural, but it can also, well, this here is bloodshed. Okay. All this to say simply that if it's morphologically singular or plural, it may, in fact, there are some times where it will function the opposite way. That's all that was about. Feminine endings have three types. We have feminine singular, we have the "a" ending, we have no ending, and we have tav. And what we first dealt with here is the paradigm, and this is something to memorize.